Hey squad, welcome back. Now today I want to celebrate two incredible milestones. First of all, I want to thank you guys for your incredible support of my channel, as now there are over 7,000 subscribers to this channel. This is incredible, and I want to thank you so much for your amazing support and encouragement in making this happen. I promise you that I'll continue to deliver great videos, great content to support you on your musical journey, and I look forward to your continued support of what I'm doing here. Remember to share the videos, like the content if you're feeling it, and drop me a comment whenever you get a chance. Now the second thing I want to celebrate is the launch of Logic Pro X 10.5. Wow, it's been such a long time in the making, and finally it's here, and it definitely has been worth the wait. It's jam-packed with a great new set of features which I'm absolutely loving, and over the coming weeks and months I'll be digging into this with you to explore these new features and showing you how you can use them to benefit you and your productions. However, today we're going to be looking at the new Live Loops feature in Logic Pro X, and I'll be showing you how Apple have now matched up the Launchpad Pro with Logic so you can use it in pretty much the same way as you would do in Ableton Live. They have really put in a lot of work and thought on how you can use controllers such as this to enhance your creativity when working in a loop-based production format. So that's what the plan is for today. I'll be touching on some of the new features, but we're going to kick things off with the Launchpad Pro and Logic Pro X Live Loops. So let's get into it. Okay, so to get started with Logic Pro X, of course, you need to download it. We're talking about version 10.5. And here it is. You can download this directly from the Apple website. I'll have a link in the description. And you just click on the free trial right here. And as it says here, you can get 90 days for free. Hit download, it will download a file, and then you just run that application and it will install, and you'll be up and running with the fully functional version of Logic Pro X 10.5. Now there's a really important thing that you need to take note of. In order for you to run Logic 10.5, your system needs to be running at least Mac OS 10.14.6, which is the last release of Mojave. If you're on Catalina, you're fine. If you're running Mojave on your machine, you're fine. However, if you're running High Sierra or Sierra or anything below, and you cannot upgrade to Mojave, then unfortunately you will need to get a new Mac or upgrade your Mac, not necessarily new, but get something that runs the last version of Mojave. That's really important. Okay, so many of you unfortunately will not be able to run this new version of Logic, which is a real shame because it's not about power or anything like that. It's simply Apple's way of forcing us to upgrade our hardware. So that's something important to keep in mind. So once you've installed Logic and you're ready to go, you're going to come to the new project screen as you would normally. And under new project, you've got two options here. You can go for an empty project, which is the traditional Logic project, or you can go for Live Loops. Now we'll be dealing with Live Loops mainly today, but I want to show you a couple of bits down here. You've got starter grids, and these are to do with Live Loops, and we're going to be touching on these. You've got tutorials, which are fantastic. If you're new to Live Loops and working in this sort of format, definitely check out these tutorials. You've got a demo project, and we've got project templates as we had before. So what we're going to do actually, we're going to kick off by jumping straight into one of these starter grids, just to kind of give you an idea of how the Live Loops arrangement show up in Logic. So I'm going to go with this one right here, Chill Hip Hop Masher. Let's click on that and choose. Okay, great. So here's the layout for that Live Loop template. And as you can see, we've got rows and columns made up of individual cells. Over here, we've got all of our track lanes. We've got drums, hi-hats, leads, and so on. If I pressed I on the keyboard, I'll be able to pull up the inspector. As usual, you'll see all of the effects, plugins, and all of the instrument plugins as well. Now, all of these cells actually correspond with the Launchpad Pro. And down here, we've got the play buttons or the launch buttons. Now, if I was to rotate my Launchpad Pro so that these play buttons were in the same position as these play buttons, let's just do that now. That makes things a lot easier to follow. So, for example, this column right here with the blank cell at the top is this one here. So if I was to press play here, okay, and of course I could launch it from down here as well. I hit the spacebar to stop playback. So we launch each column either by clicking on this play button down here or on the corresponding play button on the Launchpad Pro. Great. So I've been launching all of the columns using my Launchpad Pro. But if you notice here, when I press this one right here, that launched this one, which means this is out of view. So in order to access this column on the Launchpad Pro, I need to hit the up button or sideways button. And now that becomes available. So if I press now, the Launchpad Pro buttons are 8 by 8. However, when you're programming, you might have more than 8 columns. This here has got 9 columns and it's got 11 rows. So 9 columns going that way and 11 rows going down. So in order to access rows 9, 10, and 11, we'd need to push this button because this here is row 8, 9, 10, 11. If I push once more, there's the blank space, which is down here. Okay, again, you'll get used to it once you start messing with it, and you can always decide to go this way using rotation or have it the traditional way. I'll definitely say when you're programming, you want to have it like this when you're programming because it just makes life easier in terms of accessing notes and say drum pads, for example. If you was to go to the drum mode, so it just makes sense having it in the traditional form so you can program your drums or your keys in note format like so. Okay, so like I said, you can launch the clips or the rows or the patterns from either the Launchpad Pro, or if you don't have that, you can just click down here. I can have like this particular pattern playing and then choose a cell from another column. Let's say, for example, the drum patterns in these cells were a little bit different. I can choose to play all of this column and then switch to another drum pattern or another lead synth part, or maybe switch up the bass line while this is all playing. Of course, if I was to click on the bass, the sub bass here, this bass will stop just so that this one will play. Okay. Of course, it takes a little getting used to, but believe me, you'll get there pretty quickly. Now, another thing to bear in mind is the quantize start, which is set to 1 bar over here. Now, that indicates at what point in the sequence does the next column or pattern play when you press a button. So let's say this sequence is playing and I was to click here. At what point does this column start to play? It doesn't play immediately. It actually starts playing at the beginning of the very next bar of music. So let me demonstrate. I'll actually use the Launchpad Pro and you'll see and hear how this actually works. So let's kick things off like this. So as you can see, from the time I pressed the button, there was a slight delay until the next pattern played. And of course, that's because it's set to 1 bar. So the next pattern starts playing at the beginning of the very next bar. You can set this to whatever you like, half note, quarter note, and even longer, but the default is 1 bar. Okay, another thing I just want to show you down here real quick, which we're going to cover in the future, but this is kind of cool. We've got the remix plugin already sitting here. So let's have a little go at this and I'll show you how this works in relation to the live loops. So let's launch a pattern. Pretty cool, I must say. Really interesting effects that you can mess with here. All I was doing was clicking on a cell and then moving around in here, or just clicking here, and this will do a bit of a reverse. This here does scratching, sort of vinyl scratching, and this one slows down to stop. Over here, you can do the same. You can switch it up. You can set this to reverb and come here, set this to repeater. Okay. And it's great little feature that can add some interesting effects to your productions. Okay, so that's a very brief overview of a pre-made live loops session. Let's create one of our own now. So we're going to come up here and we're going to go to File, New from Template. And this time we're going to go to New Project, but this time we're going to choose live loops from here and then hit choose. Now have a look at the layout of the screen. It's very similar to the traditional layout. You've got your loop browser over here. You've got your tracks just here running this way. Again, we've got the instruments. We've got the inspector over here. We can pull up the library over here as well. Okay, so very similar. Now notice here you've got this little box with 6 buttons in there, and then you've got this one over here. So if we were to click this, we are now looking at live view and the traditional track view. So if I was to switch this one off, there we go, we can start programming as normal, what you're used to doing on a timeline basis in Logic. Okay, we can close this like so, and this is what you're accustomed to with Logic. However, if we were to click this one, we could have them both open, or click this one off. So you're just looking at the live loops session. Now, really quickly, before we actually get into creating our own live loop session and building a track using this, I just want to show you a few of the fantastic features that are now available in Logic Pro X. If you were to come up here, go to Window, and you went to Open Step Sequencer, This is a fantastic step sequencer feature that has been missing from Logic forever. There was one in the Ultra Beat drum synth, which I really didn't like, but this one is super. And for those of you who have worked in FL Studio, you'll be very familiar with using Step Sequencer, and this one here is absolutely brilliant. I'll be demonstrating how to use this real soon and how this can enhance your productions, so keep a lookout for that. The other thing I want to show you that's really cool and I'm loving in Logic is the quick sampler. Let's pull that up real quick. And right here, this is a super sampling instrument where you can pull in audio files, chop them up, select sections, regions, and at different transient points and create new instruments from them. You can do a whole lot of editing and modification to create great new instruments. A fantastic tool. The concept is very similar to the simpler sampler in Ableton Live, but now we have that in Logic and it's brilliant. Again, I'm going to be doing some stuff on that, so watch out for that. We've also got the drum synth, which is this tool right here. Let's pull this up. You can create your own unique electronic drum kit sounds from here. So you can choose from kicks, snares, claps. So let's go to human clap or a gritty snare, and you can modify and edit the tone and the pitch and everything, you know, and create your own. That's fantastic. Okay, so you're going to have loads of fun with the drum synth. Again, we'll do something on that soon. And let's come down now to my favorite, which is Sampler. Now, if you've watched my videos in the past, you would know that I am a big user of the EXS24 sampler, but that interface has been around forever. And finally, Apple have updated it. And this is the replacement for the EXS24 sampler. And it is simply superb. I'm not going to go into it too much right now because I'll be doing videos on that later on. But this update in Logic has to be my favorite. Okay, so let me show you how you can use live loops. It's really, really simple. First things first, I don't want this audio track, so I'm going to click on that and delete as you would normally using backspace. Also, in my transport, I always like to work with custom. Okay, so you have a lot more information there. I'm going to work at a tempo of, say, 110. And the first instrument I'm going to use is the Drum Machine Designer, which also has had a great facelift and new features and functionality. Again, I'll be doing more on that. Let's start off with this kick right here. So I'm just going to select the first cell, the kick cell, and I'm going to click on that and instantly it goes in. Okay. And over here on the Launchpad Pro, let's set this up to drum mode. So Shift and the third pad in, we're now in drum programming mode. And if I was to press this, that's my kick. I want to put some claps in. So right here. So I'm going to click on the cell and I'm going to come to claps and I'm going to go for this one right here. So we've got, let's keep the drums real simple like so. Okay, so I'm just going to select the first cell, this one right here, and I'm going to start recording in this cell. Now there's a couple of things I'm going to do. I'm going to set my count in to 2 bars. Okay, I'm going to have my metronome on. So before I start recording, I'm going to just hit the play button, the metronome going, so I've got an idea as tempo and work out my pattern. And I'll do something like this. Okay, so that's going to be my pattern. So I'm ready to go. Just hit this and it's going to be a 2-bar count in. Great. So let's go into here, double click on that region, select all, Command A to select all, Q to quantize. It's recorded 3 bars of music. I'm just going to grab this loop end and pull that down to the beginning of bar 3. So this is now 2 bars. Let's play that back. that's my kick drum. The other thing I'm going to do, I'm going to use my other key command, which is the velocity limiter. So it's command 9. And we're going to come up here, fixed velocity, and 100 is enough for me. Click select and operate, and we're good to go. Let's launch that again. Now, in order to record my claps directly into this same cell right here, I need to use the key command Option R or Alt R. So if we do that now, and we get a 2-bar count in, and here we go. Okay, let's go in. Okay, and once again, I'm going to use my fixed velocity, operate only. Okay, let's quantize that as well. Command A to select all, Q to quantize. Great. So there's my kick and my claps. So something to keep in mind just before we move on is this drum section is in a track stack. So as you can see right here, although the drums are recorded in this cell, they're still being routed to their own independent outputs. So this here is the kick drum channel, and this here is the snare channel. So if I was to play that back, mute the kick, I can EQ the kick, the clap, sorry, on its own. I could EQ and effect compress the kick if I wanted to on its own. So that flexibility is still there, and it's all tucked away nicely in this drum kit track. So I'm just going to call this kit for now. We're now going to introduce another sound. Let's pull something in from the loop browser. Okay, so from the loop browser, I'm going to add a shaker. So let's just come up here and type shaker in here. And I've used this one before. I like that one. So let's just grab that, pull that over, and drop it right here. And now that's in place, we can click play. We've got our drums, we've got our shaker. Let's check the volumes. Yep, that's all right. And now we're going to add something else. Now, before we move on to adding our next element, if we were to double click on this shaker part right here, you'd see it's using Logic's drummer tool, which is brilliant because you can go in now and you can modify this accordingly. So if I was to play back, so we can mess with the complexity and the volume. We can probably bring something else in here. Now that's really, really cool. I think that's a great feature in terms of quickly coming up with some interesting percussion parts, all in one single device. Anyway, let's just add another item from the loop browser. This time, let's go for some hi-hats, and I'm going to go for this shuffle hat beat. Okay, and I'm just going to pull this here, drag this and drop this right here. I'm going to filter all of the low end out of this shuffle beat. So I'm just going to double click here to pull up an EQ. And as you can see, even the EQ looks a bit different in this new version of Logic. But anyway, for now, let's just play back. Engage a high pass filter. I'm just going to raise the high shelf a bit. Okay, let's hear that all together. Okay, sounding good so far. Let's save that. Let's introduce some more elements. Okay, so the next element we're going to add is a bass line, and we're just going to use Alchemy. So I'm going to create a new software instrument track. I'm going to select Alchemy right here, and I want to use the sound, which is the balloon finger. And on the Launchpad Pro, I'm going to switch to note mode. So Shift and the second button in. And let's hear that. Okay, so the pattern I want to play will go something like this. Okay, so let's put this pattern down, and I'm going to click right here, and we're going to get our 2-bar count in. Okay, so the bass line is down. Let's go in and edit that. Double click here, and we're just going to quantize this. So Command A to select all, Q to quantize. Great. I'm happy with that. And if you notice, I'm just creating my pattern coming down this column. So I'm just working on one column at the moment. In terms of arranging things and switching things up later on, we'll get to that. But let's just build one column along here. I'm going to add a few more elements, and then we'll start arranging. Okay, so just to quickly recap, so far we've got elements from the Drum Machine Designer right here. We've got a loop from the loop library, but this is generated from the drummer unit. We've also got, it's a straight up sample loop again from the loop library. Here we've got Alchemy, so the built-in synth in Logic. Now it's time for us to add some audio. Okay, so let me create a new audio track. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some guitar. So in fact, I'm going to create guitar and bass track, and let me just put down a really simple guitar part. I'm going to go for Echo Studio as the preset, and let me just put that down right now. And make sure you arm for recording, and you click here, and we're going to get our 2-bar count in. Okay, so I've recorded quite a few bars there, and I'm going to go in and edit out the bit that I actually want. And I'll show you how we can go about doing that and making sure that the guitar part is nice and tight as well. So let's just listen through this recording real quick. I'm going to hit this play icon right here. Okay, great. So the section I'm going to work with is between bar 5 and bar 9. Okay, so I'm just going to work with that. So I'm just going to come across here. I'm going to go to where the pointer changes to loop start. I'm going to grab that. I'm going to pull this up to bar 5. I'm also going to come back to the actual bottom of the loop down here, the recording, and I'm going to pull this in to bar 5 as well. I'm going to go to the end. In fact, I'm just going to go to the bottom right here, and I'm just going to grab this and pull this to bar 9. Yeah. And the loop, I want this as well to start to end at bar 9. So let's have a listen to that. Now, next thing I want to do is I want to crop this so. I'm going to come over here to edit, and I'm going to go to trim, and I'm just going to select crop cell outside playable range. Boom. And as you can see, this was at bar 5, it's now bar 1, and this is our 4-bar section. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to tidy this up a little bit to make it a little bit tighter. So I'm going to click on the flex mode, and I'm going to come here down the bottom, and where these transient markers are, I'm going to pull that to there. I'm going to come to this one, grab this one, pull that one to there. Going to pull this one. I just want this really nice and tight. This one, I'm going to pull this back. Let's undo that. Grab this, pull this back to here. Pull this. I could work with that. Now there's a little section right at the end here which we don't want, okay? So I'm going to just get rid of that by just coming down here, pulling that back like so. Now don't forget the loop is still, we haven't touched the loop length. It's still going to loop at 4 bars, even though we've cut that back a little bit. Okay, so let's have a listen. Perfect, love that. Okay, just pull the volume down, and we're just going to add a couple more bits, and then we can start arranging. Okay, so if we wanted to switch from note mode on the Launchpad Pro, all we need to do is press the setup key and press the first cell in the top corner. And as you can see, we've got our patterns taking shape here. So, and if we press play here, great. If we press this one, we'll now see the whole sequence taking shape. Okay. So there are a couple more buttons that we can use on the Launchpad Pro. For example, if I wanted to, say, duplicate any of these cells or maybe a whole column, let's just go for one cell. Select the cell and press duplicate. And that duplicates the cell just like that. Quantize button, I can use the undo button as well on here. These all just work exactly as labeled, even down here where it comes to muting. So I can mute an individual cell. So let's play this back. I can select mute and press the cell, and another one. Okay, so one thing just to keep in mind is it can be a bit confusing, and I'm going to spin this round in a minute, is we were playing this column right here, which corresponds with this column right here. At one point, I was pressing cells in the wrong column, but I should have been focused on this one. So let's just spin this round once again to make it a little easier. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to delete this. We're going to highlight all of these, and we're just going to duplicate the lot. Okay, we're just going to arrange this in a way that sort of makes some sense. So let's delete some of these cells. Delete. I'm going to take out the drums. Let's just build this up. like so. Let's start with this maybe. Okay, cool. We're going to have the next section is going to be with the shaker. And then we're going to just have a section. Let's take the lead out from this one. Let's have the lead only playing in one column, one pattern. Let's just trigger those off and then see what we come up with. Great, I'm sure you get the idea. Now, the last thing I'm going to show you is how we can record our live on the fly arrangement back into Logic in the traditional sense. So what we got to do is come up here and click on this button right here. And we're also going to click this up here so we can see the track lanes. Okay, make sure the loop is off. And we're going to start with this pattern here. So make sure we're all the way at bar 1, press record. Okay, that starts there. Right, we're going to trigger this one. Then we're going to come in with the full production. Okay, I'm sure you get the idea. And that's how easy it is to record back into the sort of normal Logic arrangement. Let's close the live loop section for a second. We come back here, and if I want to play this back, this is what you got to do. Let's just crunch these down like so. If I hit play, we are still playing the live loops. Okay, so what you've got to do if you just want to run these is you've got to click here. This is important. Otherwise, you won't be playing these back. Let's run this now. The whole track has come in, but the drums are not playing. Although they've been switched now to timeline flow, they're not playing. Let's solo that. So what you've got to do, you've got to go into the track stack, and you've got to do it here as well. And now let's listen to all of that together. Okay, so before we wrap things up, there's one more very important thing that I need to explain to you. Now, I put a video out a few weeks ago showing you how you can use Logic Pro X and the Launchpad Pro. Now, that was ahead of this version of Logic coming out. 10.5, and of course I had no idea that they were going to do such an amazing job of matching up the Launchpad Pro with Logic Pro X. Now the important thing that I need to point out is in that video I showed you how you can map all of these buttons to different functions within Logic. That was on version 10.4. However, with now 10.5, all of these buttons are now needed to run the live loops properly. So what you're going to find is if you went ahead and followed my instructions in my last video and mapped all of these functions, you're going to need to go in and remove all that mapping. One way of doing it is to open up the key commands editor and come over here and hit initialize all key commands. All right. Now that will clear everything that you've set up. In particular, what you want to clear is the mapping of these buttons. If you're planning on using 10.5 and the Launchpad Pro, you will need to go back and reset all of the key commands associated with this, the ones that you've edited. Okay, great stuff. I really do hope you found the video useful. If you did, drop me a line in the comment section, like the video and subscribe to the channel. This will really help me out. Now remember to support me at deucebeats.com as well as on my social media channels. And finally, switch on that notification bell so just like the rest of the MTTC squad, you will find out as soon as my next video drops. Until next time, I'm Dr. Deuce. Peace.